Okay, so welcome to today's meetup. It's really lovely to have you here today to take the time to spend with us. As you can see, you're here to come and listen to the wonderful Siobhán, and we're going to be talking about challenge versus conflict and people versus product. But before we do that, as you know, this meetup is called the Virtual Agile. And it's a group for absolutely everyone. It doesn't matter to us if you hate Agile, love it, in between it, have turned up and got no idea why you're here. Stay, because I hope that it's going to be fun and you're going to learn something. So thank you very much for joining. Who am I? I'm Helen Garcia. I'm a Scrum Master, Agile Coach, and more recently productivity coach as well. So quite excited about new ventures and journeys ahead of me. And my wonderful co-host is Ines Garcia. Would you like to just say a couple of?
Of course. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, everybody. I'm Ines Garcia. I'm an Agile coach. I work for myself. I'm a little bit of an inventor, so always doing new adventures, such as the book, whichever site is another one coming up really, really soon. So there you go.
Another one. That's exciting. Ooh.
First time this has been released.
Yeah. Teaser campaign.
So yeah, just again, thank you. I know that we say it a lot, but we do appreciate the time that we have is very, very special, and we like to use it in ways that enrich our lives. So yeah, it's really lovely to have you here. Just a few fun admin things. Fire escapes, totally up to you where you escape from your building. If you have a fire, just leave, I recommend. But today, as you know, we'll be recording the session as we're recording right now. If you're not happy to be recorded, either turn your camera off, but hopefully that's all fine because it's in the meetup invite anyway. The time box for today's session, we go to an hour and a half. So it's 90-minute time box, and we're 8 minutes in. We also have questions, answers. Feel free to do what makes you feel comfortable. If you want to just speak and ask a question, then do it. Take yourself off mute. We are certainly not fussy like that. If you'd rather put it in the chat, then do that as well. Either way, whatever makes you comfortable. I think that's it from that side. Your favorite bit. If you haven't been to the meetup before, you may not know, my favorite game is rock, paper, scissors. I love it. I play it very frequently with my teams at work. It's a brilliant game because everybody knows it pretty much globally. I don't think I've ever met anybody from a country that doesn't know rock, paper, scissors. If you don't, then please tell me because I would love to meet you. Does everybody know? Can people show me a rock? For yes, I know it, and show me a pair of scissors. Awesome, lovely scissors. I always say it depends on whether you're having a good day or bad day on your scissors. Yeah, Amanda, that's quite right. Paper? You can see some lovely, beautiful papers. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so now we've done that practice round. We all know what rock, paper, scissors is. Let's just go crazy. And I'm going to test your ability to do it as quick as possible by asking you a couple of questions. So, first question. Oh, you're going to give me £1 million. That's wonderful. Thank you, Siobhán. That's excellent. The first question is, who has experienced conflict at work before? Show me a rock for a yes, not sure, or a scissor. Okay, cool. We got a thumbs up for a yes as well. Excellent. Has that conflict been a positive experience? I think Ines, that would be a paper, no? Or yes and no?
Both.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I realised I commented outright for that. Okay, so with that, and as we're here to talk about this particular subject, are you excited to learn more tonight? Wicked. If you're not excited, then that's okay, but please stay, or you're also free to go. We're not holding you captive. But on that note, let's move forward to Ines. Would you do the honors?
Of course. So yeah, really excited to gather today. First, because for a very popular demand, as you know, we ask after every session, which are the content you may be interested. So the subject of conflict has come a few times. So very happy to cover what you asked. And also is because I'm excited because Siobhán is here with us, and we met recently. And I have been highly impressed with her background and experience, and especially on like her technical and coaching skills, which is a mix I really enjoy. So impressed, intrigued, and interested. So no pressure, Siobhán, there you go. The other thing is that we hear a lot about fear of conflict, right? But what really is that, and what is going through our mind, and what it hinders if it's not handled well, and what you end up missing out. So all of that is goodness that we can see on every day. So let's have this conversation about it. Get your questions ready, your pickles, interested to find some of the tangible situations that we get ourselves into every day to discuss. Because we have this very highly seasoned executive and agile coach. So thank you so much, Siobhán, for being part of this. So let's get to it.
Thank you. Do you want me to take over the share? Okay. Bear with me while I make sure I don't show my underwear.
That would be the first on here, I think.
Let me see. So screen one. So it's not giving me a window option. Sorry.
Whilst we do that, if any of you have attended for a specific thing that has in mind or something that happens, feel free to pop it in the chat, or any questions you might have, and then we'll grab them as they come.
So can you see good evening and a sunflower?
And
hopefully nothing else. Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you very much for the very generous introduction. I really appreciate it. So as Ines said, I'm a coach. I'm an executive coach, ICF accredited. I'm also an agile coach, and I've also got an honours degree in engineering, which I've used for 20 more years in various industry sectors. So enough about me. So what we will cover today, I hope, is a light touch of conflict and challenge, how they might relate to you and the people you know.
Okay, yes. It's 9:115.
Hi, Cody. Sorry about that. A mindset I work hard to use when I approach this domain, with most time spent on answering any questions you might have and maybe testing out my recipe with some of your real world examples. So I'm going to do a bit of an explainer and some talking, but then there'll be like a lot of time hopefully for you guys to get up close and comfortable with the recipe that we're going to think about today. So let me see if I can get to the next slide. So a little bit of warning. So any of the content in here, because when I started preparing for it, it's quite a complex ground. So use any of it as you wish, but at your own risk, please. Also, if you'd like any support one-to-one afterwards, it's what I do. It's I'd love to help you. Just get in touch with me. My contact details are on LinkedIn and they're at the end of the slide deck. Love to help. So I also, as we go through, I may use some coaching style questions just to be upfront about that. You're welcome to take part if we do use those sections, and you can take part silently. So answer the questions just and keep them to yourself. You can observe and see what's going on and see what the outcomes are. And you can add answers to the chat or not, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Also, again, I know the girls have said that this session's being recorded, but because of the topics we're talking about, we might get a bit passionate about them and then start thinking, oh, this, that. So just be mindful of anonymizing anything that you feel may be sensitive or private to you or someone you know as well. Okay, so Captain America. Well, Captain America thinks that our very strength invites challenge, challenge incites conflict, and conflict breeds catastrophe. So do you agree with Captain America? How does this make you feel? How does this statement make you feel? So it definitely resonates with me. So I was invited by Ines to do, as she talked, we met in a mentoring group, to do a talk for your group. And I'm really passionate about challenge versus conflict. And Ines explained that this was a topic that was requested by the group. So hooray, we had our topic, which is great. Well, when I started to think about it, because as I said, I haven't done a talk on this before, I quickly realized that the layers of knowledge that I've built up over the years of my career and life, and how complex an area it is, and that I definitely can't fit the whole lot in our talk. So it reminded me of the layers of an onion, really. What does this mean, and what do I have to think about as a result? Well, I want us to get as much from this session as possible together. It also makes me think that we probably need to tread carefully because of the complexity. And that's why I put up the warning on the page before as well. It's just to be conscious that if we're talking about people and ourselves, that it's a sensitive area. Maybe that's why we're all a bit afraid of it sometimes. So I quite like this picture. And if you think about it for a second, what's the first thing that jumps into your mind? Is it conflict and they're fighting, or is it that they're kissing? So just a bit of a thought provoker. So there's a gentleman called Thomas Kilman who has designed a conflict model that I think is quite well known, and some of you may be familiar with it. And if the graphic's not great quality, but if you Google it, there's like so many, like with his name, this will pop up all over the place. And basically what it does is helps us to understand how we might fit in a profile of how comfortable we are with conflict. So on the left hand side, you've got a gradient of unassertive to assertive, and on the bottom you've got uncooperative to cooperative. So the turtle is quite uncooperative and quite unassertive. So when he sees conflict, he or she or they see conflict, they'll tootle away from the situation quietly. Whereas the owl is probably going to be quite assertive and quite cooperative. So neither one or other of these profiles is better, but it often helps to have an understanding of where you might fit on this scale, and where other people around you might fit on the scale. Are you a rabbit in the headlights? So if someone says something that you see as being conflicty, are you rabbit in the headlights? Are you in a place where, oh my God, I can't believe they said that to you? Or maybe you've observed that someone talking to someone else in a way that really like gets your feelings going whether it's in your head or your heart, or however you react to conflict. Do they know they're having that impact on the people around them? Are they aware? Have you worked with someone or been around someone that makes people cringe, or even might be called or considered a bully by you or other people? It always makes me ask the question, are they really a bully? Maybe it's us, we feel particularly sensitive to conflict, and for good reasons, from our past or from experience. Our feelings might be hurt. They might make us cross. Cross is an Irish thing for angry, so it's a bit more friendly. So introduce you to some new words maybe. What are our options if we experience this? And that kind of comes back to Kilman's model again. Like, we can ignore it. We can feel really cross and let it go this time, but if it happens again, I'll definitely do something about it the next time, even though I know I said that the last time, but I really mean it this time, right? Maybe that's happened to you. Maybe you decided to take up the challenge in whatever way, or maybe you just had enough and erupted at them like a volcano and maybe demonstrated some of their behaviors back to them, or something else. So I have, that was kind of quite a generic discussion, a monologue, I should say. So what would I do? So this is where I'm hoping that maybe some of my experience will help you think about things in a different way, or maybe you're working like this already and it's teaching you how to suck eggs. That's fine too. Maybe you can teach me something back, which is great. So what would I do? I'd check how comfortable I'm feeling when I see or experience something. Is there a little fear creeping up into my tummy? You know, that feeling just starts bubbling up, or maybe it's something in your head or somewhere else. I decide to face the fear and challenge the behavior. It's just too important to me. That's what I do. I'm going to challenge the person's behavior. Okay, so at this point, it's a great time to pause and ask yourself, aka me, ask myself some questions. What outcome do I want when I do this challenge for me and for the team or the group? So whoever it is on behalf of that I may be brokering this challenge. Have I got, maybe I have a gripe and I haven't quite owned that properly. And I'm just like going, I'm jealous of this person, envious, who knows what's going on. Why am I even thinking or feeling this? So check myself, what's going on for me? What is my current mindset? Do I need to shift it and bring down the grrr? So a recipe that I use is I channel some compassion. So I like to add compassion to the chemical mix of challenge. So before I do even consider a challenge, I'll go, well, how can what can be going on for the other person? Or how are they feeling? What might have caused this behavior? Maybe something in their world is really tough and they need a friendly face. I never know what's going on for someone else. Or was it me? Did I cause that or contribute to it happening somehow? Let's be fair, right? So what would help me achieve an outcome that I want for me or the team or the group? So having thought through it. So basically what I'm saying is pause, have a think about myself, what's going on for me, have a think about what might be going on for the other person, and see how I feel then. Have I noticed a shift in my thinking? If I'm still decided like I need to do something about this either in the moment, or I want to go and have a think about it and decide what I want to do later, I get to a position where I share what I noticed as a gift. So I noticed that, for example, Shane, just picked a random name, didn't get a chance to share their point of view. I don't know if you noticed that, like, so maybe it was Ines was chairing a meeting and I went up to her after and said, did you notice? Because maybe she genuinely didn't, maybe she wasn't ignoring him for the last 10 meetings. So some other recipes that like I pulled off when I looked at the onion layers, where it's sometimes really useful to keep the emotion out of the conversation and say things like, when you said X, it made me feel Y. And then to stretch yourself a bit further, instead of leaving the responsibility of the person that you're talking to or challenging, you can, if you know a solution that will help improve things for you, then put that on the table and take the risk and say, well, if you could say this, then that would make me feel much better. And then what you're doing is you're almost asking for help from this person to help you fit in better. So it's more like a collaboration. So think of the turtle versus the owl. So you're moving towards that collaboration space and treating them more as a friend and an ally who does start out you're in a mindset where you think the best of them instead of the worst. So moving from them being a bully to someone who is a really kind, sharing, thoughtful person who just doesn't know. They don't know what's going on. So I noticed in the meeting is another thing you could say, that each time person W spoke, I like the alphabet letters here, they were cut off. Consequence. So I don't think they got to share their ideas, which could really help with the problem we're trying to solve. So I could say that to Ines as well. It might be that you want to prepare, so you want to take a bit more time to reflect on it because you just need time to think. So have a think about if you need help. You could talk to someone else who's maybe not in that group and explain what you would like to do, and maybe they can be your buddy. So they can be your thinking partner, but they can also maybe be your buddy in the room, just to give you a bit of support if that's appropriate. If the behavior you would like to challenge is experienced by a few people, buddying up can help with strengthening the challenge. Watch out for ganging up though, no ganging up, because that's just changing the balance, right? It's moving the problem. Maybe practice with someone you feel comfortable with, maybe a bit of role play offline. So and that can be even just going, oh, can we do that differently? Because that can be a challenge. It can feel a really big step for someone to take who hasn't done that before. And I completely understand that, and it's very valid. Or if you've had maybe a bit of practice, or you're just in the right mindset and in the moment, and you've stopped and paused and thought about what outcomes you want and where the other person might be, and grown some empathy and compassion, maybe you could say, I noticed that Petra was trying to say something just now. I'm really interested to hear what you'd like to share, Petra. And you can step in and create some space for that other person. So ally yourself with the person to grow their team so they've got a bit more strength, but in a compassionate, challenging way. Watch out for ganging up again. Use some practice recipes from earlier in the moment. So the things that we've talked about, in like when you said X with Y, I noticed in the meeting each time the person spoke, they were cut off. So instead of with those, you were reflecting and maybe coming back a day or a week later. When you get a bit more practice with them, you could come back and use them more in the moment. You could try it out. So the things that I would say are, remember to be respectful, be kind, be compassionate, and be clear. Ask early on, what outcome are you looking for? Is this realistic? What help or support do I need? And practice with someone you feel very comfortable with. So this slide is very much the hardest thing that I have found to learn, which I didn't even recognize that I was doing anymore, is the pause. Is to press the pause button on the emotional reactions when your crocodile jumps out of your head and goes, "Wah!" or your tortoise comes out to go, oh, I need to get out of here straight away. It's like trying to hold yourself in the moment, to just have time to reflect, decide what you want to do. And deciding can be, I'm going to leave this, it's too much for me, I want to go away, and then act. And acting can be moving away, or it can be addressing it or going away and thinking about it. And that is my key takeaway for today. Does anyone have an example that they'd like to test out? Or do you have any other questions?
I have a question. It's actually a very much up-to-date subject for me at the moment, as there is something that was called as a conflict by one of the team member. And I don't know exactly now what's on the other side. What I observed so far was that it might be just a perception and another person has completely no idea what's going on the other side, and that he might be perceived that specific way. And I was thinking, apart from having those individual conversations, how I could support that. And I was reading this article recently where the idea of doing some sort of a personality tests, kind of a simple test where you share it with the team and then allow them to maybe get to know each other better or understand how different we are, and at the same time how we can work and support each other better, could be potentially a starting point here. So I don't know about your experience, but if there is anything that you could suggest, I would appreciate it.
So I think that's a great idea. It's definitely an approach I've taken before, and there's some really useful things that you can do that are quite lighthearted. So a thing that I have noticed that causes conflict really regularly are what types of people we are and what motivates us.
Yes.
So it might be that I'm a planner organizer and that you love spontaneity and creativity, and we're in the same team working against each other. And as a planner organizer, I hate coming to a meeting without having an agenda and knowing a sequence of times and everything. And you're like going, you love the energy of just going, oh, let's meet and we'll talk about whatever comes up. And actually that can cause a significant conflict in a team if those people don't understand each other's needs and how you impact each other. So bringing that awareness out in the way you suggested is a great idea if people are up to it. So I'd always say seek permission and share why you want to do it. And sometimes by making yourself vulnerable and saying, I'm this type of person, it kind of helps other people step in a bit. But yeah, what does anyone else think? Or what other experiences do people have in the same domain where you're in a team and there's things going on, and maybe it's because you've got a hunch like Marta that you've got different personality profiles?
I might have some experience related to that. Actually, I was going to share some book I read a couple of years ago. It's called Business Chemistry. It identifies kind of, I think, 4 or 5 kind of personality roles or personas, and depending on set of questions and so on. But the particularity of this is how to approach to that person that might have that kind of role as a leadership, more decisive decisions, and that the mindset is different. Like I don't know, acting as like a PM or an executive and so on. And then on the other hand, you have people that are really diving into the detail, like developers or testers and so on. So it's like having that awareness on how to approach to this type of personas, using different strategics, let's call it bridges, to get some empathy and get into the shoes to what connect with them. I thought that was very powerful in building relations.
Generating empathy. Yeah, I completely agree. But does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
So something that I've learned recently is actually this whole thing of unconditional positive regard, so non-judgment on people. And I think sometimes it's used for, you know, if someone annoys you or screeches around the corner or whatever it is, like taking in consideration of, like you said, you were talking about, why are they doing that, or why has that happened? Is there something else behind this to why someone's reacted? But I've certainly found it really helpful in my day-to-day with teams to think, because I used to be a project manager, so I am very much, it's interesting, relate to Esteban, what you were saying. But yeah, having the more of an oversight, and now I'm starting to understand a little bit more with like the testers, with the dev teams, all of that, that they actually, there's so much value in that interest in detail, and I have to be able to, you know, treat that with, you know, with complete respect and not get annoyed when it's like diddling into the detail and I'm just like, I just need to know ABC, because I imagine that's very frustrating as well. So yeah, but anyway, thank you. That was a nice example. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Helen. Would anyone else like to add their thoughts or experiences or raise some other questions?
Well, I wanted to add the fact I really liked your mentioning it towards the end of the presentation, the fact of when you're hearing something and that moment of pausing before you choose your character of what you're going to be, to then either dash off or confront or try and collaborate. And I think that sort of pause and breathe moment before you respond, I think it's going to be incredibly powerful. And so if you can just go, just don't react yet, just try and figure out where is this person and why are they saying this stuff, and put yourself into that person's shoes. And why are they coming at you at this point and have a different opinion to you, and can you absorb that opinion? And so very much in a delivering projects and finding out people's requirements, you know, they're coming out of this sort of direction here and they may not be actually on board, so you've got to try and steer that conversation into something that people can work with, or we might be like, nah, face future, or have you considered this way, or maybe we'll deliver this for now, or those sort of options, as opposed to just going no and sort of and running off and being the shark, I suppose, and being this very much a combative person. I know I have been the shark in the past because I suppose I didn't have that support thinking or acknowledgement that I could make those decisions or work with these people. They were coming full on me and going, I need this now. And I'm going, no, I can't deal with that right now because I've got so much more other stuff going on that even my plate is so full and I've got no one backing me up to help me, to give me that sort of gravitas to go, yes, we can do this, we can do this. So you become the shark. Whereas now I suppose I have more gravitas and I can know that what I can play and what I can do, and therefore I can be the more collaborative and just go, okay, look, I'm coming to you with this bit of knowledge. I know you want to achieve this. This may be possible. This may not be possible. So let's try and get to this point instead and see how they do. And I suppose if they're still not, if I don't have this, it's the end of the world, then okay, fine. I'm just going to pass that and escalate that over through, and you can see. And someone else can make that decision. And it's nice sometimes being in that role of just going, I hear you, and I'm not going to make a decision on this. I'm just going to pass that on. And see how they feel about that. So you become the collaborator, the owl, as opposed to the shark. And it's interesting. But that pause moment, I think, very, very valuable for any type of conversation you're doing, making sure you get that real information from that person first.
Yeah. Thank you. Really insightful, Amanda. The other thing I'd add on to that as well is that sometimes when people come in and they're really enthusiastic, it's a really great sign. So like, it's about flipping that in your mind and going, they're not trying to derail you. They feel passionate about something. And if you use the agile culture to your benefit and say, oh, I'm not sure what that means, I don't know how it affects what we're doing, but if you want to have an experiment with it and see what comes out of it, and if you need any support, then that would be great, and we can see how we could maybe fold it in, because it means that the move from project management to Scrum Mastery or working as an agile team means that everyone can self-deliver, and you don't need one person making decisions at the top. So it takes that pressure off the old style project manager, and it's much more, well, we fail as a team and we succeed as a team, and failure means to learning, means to success in the future. So yeah, so good on you. Would anyone else like to add? We've had some new people join as well. I've just admitted them on the fly. Hope that's okay.
Sorry about
Thank
that.
you, Siobhán.
Yeah.
So yeah, just let everybody know that we are on an open conversation now. We can ask questions and whatever. But on the subject, I think it's also interesting that we are on this slide, where is reflect, decide, act, when it's very easy to go the other way around, or missing the decide completely and go act and then reflect. Oops. So either or, anybody that has like small tangible things that we can try to help us on that pause. What is the magic formula that can help us to bring the reflect and decide before the act, because it's really easy to jump into the act.
So that's an interesting point, and actually as a one-to-one coach, it's something that I work with people on, where you like, whether it's to do with conflict or challenge, we sometimes have this, I think it's known as triggers. Something triggers us in a situation or in an experience or with a person, and it's like some people might be doing their road rage thing, or some people are just like throwing their toys out the pram metaphorically, or we all do it for whatever reason, or someone's just like flicking your ear and you're going, enough, like, when you reach that point and you just like completely gone into I can't control my emotions. And if you can think about it, if you think of a time when you felt like that, and then just before it comes out as an expression of emotion, there might be something in your body that's physical that you'll feel. It's like going, like, you might notice something and then you'll go, you might take a deep breath, or you might feel your body temperature change, or you might rub your fingers together, or there may be some physical representation that when you observe this, that then this happens, that before the anger bursts. And if you work with someone, I mean, if you like, if you're more amazing than me, which I'm sure you all are, you can figure that out yourself. But it's sometimes really useful to pair up with someone to help you really dig into that and say, okay, where is it? What did I notice before that? And you go, no, I just always like start shouting. But if you really work hard and so, and what was before that? What did I feel or think or notice before that and before that? And was it a smell? Sometimes it's a smell. It could be anything. And if you can just become aware of that, it gives you the opportunity to, after a bit of time, just stay focused on just becoming aware of the very first thing that happens in your body. And that's the best way to get to a point where you can press the pause button. There's an add-on to that as well, while you let that absorb in. If you want to have some fun with it, but it actually exerts a lot of power, it might be that it's a voice in your head going, oh my God, they're laughing at you. Or, you know, we've all got that inner script of maybe you've been bullied as a child, or you were the third child and you always got left behind, and there's like, oh no, you're not worth it, you stay, you know, like the sibling rivalry, but you might have a voice in your head or some thoughts in your head that come to you and say you're not good enough to do this, all those things that we all have in different shapes and forms. And sometimes naming that, like giving it a name, like people have come up with, when I've coached them, come up with lots of different names to say, well, it's like, I don't know, it's like a locomotive, and the locomotive name, it might be Peter. Like they'll pick a name that means nothing to me, but is very powerful for them. And then you can say, well, when you hear the volume going up from the locomotive, what you're going to say is going, no, I'm not having you, turn the volume down. Like I'm doing this. So it gives you a way of metaphorically managing those inner voices and inner scripts, and that sometimes can derail us from our best selves.
Just a note and a follow question, because healthy conflict in teams really help us to reach new highs. That's the beauty of it, and that's the value for me. So how do we set the playing field to acknowledge that conflict is in fact productive, is in fact beneficial? We're having these conversations because we have the interest, but we may try to help to bridge that gap for others.
Okay, so my instant reaction would be to turn the question back on you and to go, well, I mean, because it's very specific to individuals and teams. It's like, oh, so how would you approach that?
Thank you. Okay, so I think one of the things that works quite well is that when you're having certain debates, it's good to encourage that and reinforce that what we're doing is a good thing and is necessary. So in conversations and in discussions that are already happen, foment the fact that remind that is a good thing when it's handled well, right? Because it helps us to get into a habit to acknowledge certain behavior as part of the job. And so enriching each other's ideas is definitely going to help us than if we go solo. If you want to go far, go together. So that's one of the things I've seen that works well.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have something to add to what Ines has offered, other experiences or thoughts?
I guess from my point, I had a very interesting experience once in a project. Basically, I was with my client, and one of the kind of product owners, engineer product owner, was very conflict. This person kind of believed that he was controlling the project, so there was a lot of clash with other team members. Being a consultant, that means that you need to navigate things very carefully. You don't want to kind of make some mistakes on trying to say, you want to try to say the right thing, but at the same time, you want to understand your clients and so on. So that conflictivity was definitely putting the project at risk. And we felt that there was not much that we can do, but just to escalate. We tried to kind of apply some techniques to deal with this conflict. And compassion didn't work, empathy didn't work, and kind of reaching a middle ground, compromising didn't work. So it meant by most of the cases when big conflicts were raising up, the only way to tackle this one was by escalating, and the director or sponsor of this project will kind of pull we call the ranks and just say, you need to stop, you need to go on and listen to everyone else. So I wonder if there was another way that we could bring another techniques to in this scenario, so me or other companions and so on could not face this regularly. I don't know if you have any experience or in these type of scenarios.
I definitely do. I think that's why I love the job that I do, because I think it's a lot about exactly what you've done, but maybe it depends on the role that you're fulfilling at the time, and you need to, what you did was pause, think, check in with other people. So you basically went through the process of reflect, decide, and act. And it doesn't mean, so sometimes it's a happy path, right? And it goes great, and sometimes it really doesn't. And sometimes the only way to manage someone's behavior is to really face off with it in extremis, right? So for me, it's a very last resort, but it is to make sure that you're transparent about it, you're still kind, you're still compassionate, so that you try and make sure that you're in the right mindset, and that you give fair feedback and say, when you did this, this is what the impact of it was, or when you behave like this, the reaction is X, which means our project is not going to get delivered on time, and that's not okay for us as a team, because it costs us. So you go through that rational thing, but then say, and because of that, this is what we need to do as a team, or this is what I need to do as a line manager, or this is what's not going to be acceptable. And then sometimes it needs to go down, if it's a company, you go down a performance route, performance management route. So that's what all those avenues are there for, but they're there as a last resort, right? So it's sometimes you need someone with the same level of energy, and sometimes it's a hierarchy that needs to be brought to bear to say, this is not acceptable behavior for our company or our team or for me as an individual. And you can take on any of those hats. You can, as an individual, say, when you behave like that, I'm not going to have that kind of conversation with you, and I want to talk about our work, but I can't talk with you because we're not having respectful conversations. So it's just stating the facts and trying to keep the emotion out of it is really helpful, but also be conscious what's in your control, exactly like you did.
Okay, thank you.
Has anyone else experienced something similar, or would you like to talk about something different?
One thing that I've tried with teams in the past, and I guess it's a bit risky maybe with that example, but actually almost create a debate out of it. So if you have opposing opinions on something, and I actually did this a few months ago with a team, is that setting up, I think we had 5 or 6 points, and basically said, okay, great, so let's talk about it, let's debate it. And they all went off into their breakout rooms, built up a really good argument, let's say, came back and then fought for their argument. And it was fun. It de-escalated some of, the tension of people with bigger voices and people with smaller voices, and it allowed everybody to kind of work as a team. And it was quite nice to see people working differently and seeing that actually, yes, we were having strong conversations, but in a way that made it a bit more fun. So making something into a debate can also work, but I think you probably have to be quite sensitive towards different personalities if it's already quite heated. And in this case, it wasn't that heated, but that I thought was quite fun.
That sounds like a great thing to do, and it sounds like you achieved a really positive result. And I think it's worth bringing out from that example, the unspoken obvious thing is that you created a safe space where people were comfortable debating, and they knew that there was either someone to hold them or facilitate them or arbitrate or help everyone be heard. And when you have, I think it's very important to have that skill set available in the room that everyone trusts and knows that they haven't got a bias to one direction or one side of the debate than the other. So yeah, nice work.
Yeah, I would like to just put some more words on it, because I've been to certain situations. Mostly the conflicts are basically, there are disagreements, and disagreement is causing a conflict, and both sides think their choice or their advice is the better one, and then the argument or debate happens. But how did you end up debate with a consensus where everybody's agreed to one conclusion? Because to my experience, sometimes even you can manage to end up a debate with a couple of sessions or even more with a one conclusion, but sometimes people still have a kind of egoish feeling that their advice was not taken enough value, and then it keep popping up throughout the task or project, whatever you call it, and then it ends up as a bad thing, which makes it difficult to handle at some point. I've been into some such sort of situations. Is there any advice or anything you guys have tried?
I've got a few bits, but anyone else like to respond? Helen, did you want to get in? Or Esteban?
Yeah, I was waiting, but I might, yeah.
Go for it. Yeah,
Esteban,
go for it. Yeah. Go on, Esteban.
I think
No, go, Helen.
You go.
Helen, you go. Helen, don't worry. You started.
I'll take over.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay. I mean, what I was going to say was around in this particular circumstance, it was about kind of the team vote. So yes, obviously you're not everybody's always going to agree. I mean, that's just kind of human nature, isn't it? But it was like a consensus of, yes, we understand that you feel quite strongly about this, but as a consensus, we are going to move together like this. I mean, it's sort of agile mindset side of thing anyway, around experimentation. So there's always that option to say, okay, sorry, it didn't work our way as a group, but it could work, you know, let's try this other option. But it was very much team agreement, team consensus, and I think that helps, especially when you've already had your voice heard. Everybody's had their voice heard in that circumstance.
Thank you. Esteban?
I was going to say something very similar. That consensus is very important. Give it that space to express, talk, and share the idea. That's fantastic. Sometimes, depending on the project, the tasks, we might see certain level of democracy. Certain other times we might not see that level of democracy and so on. But that doesn't mean that we don't listen to the people we work with. From my point of view, I always try to give that the space to raise any concerns, to speak out basically about anything. But I guess you always have these parameters, these governances for any task, projects, or something like that to kind of apply some principles of how items should be resolved or how tasks has to be tackled and so on. Therefore, even if you heard, you cannot try to kind of the word get out of my head in English. Sorry.
Say it in the language you're used to, and someone might understand you.
You try not. you're trying to kind of compromise with anyone, but that's very difficult. Or you're gonna trying to please everyone, and that's very difficult. That's the word I was trying to say.
Awesome. Thanks. So there's a few things I'd add on to that, and something that gets me out of hot water in that domain time and time again is agree the ground rules before the discussion starts. So in the same way that when we started today, we have some ground rules to say, watch out for this, watch out for that, use this. So every time we start a conversation, or I start a conversation with a group, even if we said the same rules, I say the rules at the beginning and make sure that everyone agrees or asks if anyone wants to change anything. And in that case, I'd probably say, right, we need to reach a decision today. That's why we're here. You've asked me to come and help you, support you in making a decision. That means it's highly likely that some people won't get what they really feel passionate about, and some people will. But we will go through that in a fair way, and we will do voting on it or whatever. And we will stick to that decision after, and we will let go if we haven't got what we wanted. And if everyone agrees to whatever it is that you need to agree with them up front, and you write that down, it's like really important to write it down, because our brains won't remember it if we tell it, or it needs to be, and take notes. The other thing is that's really important is that we can verbally say that we've heard something, but there's nothing more powerful than, even if it's on typing on, if you're on video conferencing, just writing down the key points using exactly the same words as the people that they've said. Don't change the words, even if there's a bad spell, or get them to go in and write down what they want and leave it as is. Don't summarize, don't change it, because that's really important for them. And the other thing is like, you didn't reach a consensus because not everyone agreed, so there was no consensus. So call it what it is and saying, well, I acknowledge not everyone got what they wanted, but the majority is going for this. So that's what we've agreed to do, and that's what I've helped you achieve. So great work, everyone. And some people are not going to get exactly what they want, but thanks for agreeing to buy into whatever the majority voted for, and acknowledge that. I think the other thing that I would say is identify if there really is an option for people to make that decision. So are the dev team trying to make a decision when it's a PO decision? So don't allow people to get their hopes up by making a decision that someone's going to crash in over because they haven't got the accountability to make the decision. And the other last thing I'd throw in is there is nothing more amazing for when a group of people are stuck to bring in someone or 2 or 3 other people from elsewhere that know nothing about it. So you might have a team of software developers who do some testing and design work and whatever. Get someone who's closely related to the product stream, but from another area, and say, just get them to listen in. But I think that's a great thing generally when this discussion happens. So you get outside of the box thinking, and they go, that doesn't make sense. And you get someone from outside to ask, they can ask questions from their point of view, and they're independent. They're not in that discussion. They haven't got the history. So it really helps free up some of those locked in thinking things sometimes as well. So, yeah, so that's it from me. I don't know if that's helpful. So I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it Unid?
That is also okay. That is acceptable. But thank you very much, everybody, for sharing their thoughts. I would just poke a couple of things more in my personal experience. A straight voting, like an announced voting, to my personal experience, sometimes it ends up a big risk of grouping it within the team, and might cause a kind of breaking the whole team spirit you might have built after spending lots of months or weeks. But the other thing which Siobhán mentioned, just saying it in a standard way, like that's what I'm hearing as majority's thought, and then just try to advocate that direction where majority will tend into it. It is a kind of problem solver. But the other thing is there's a word which has been used by some of attendees today, cooperation, and then another word was used, compromise. So these are, I think, these are two sides of the balance. Sometimes you need to compromise more, even though you have right arguments, but to keep the team spirit, that gets the weightage. Sometimes you cooperate in other direction. So compromise or cooperate where fits the right balance was kind of problem solver. But sometimes it, personally to me, it gets me feel irritated where I have to compromise more unnecessarily, while I know, or the majority knows, that the things they are advocating is the right one, but just because the other side has more power or authority, depends on the organizational setup, you need to compromise more. And that is the most irritating thing. And I think that leaves the people kind of unconvinced, but keep going. And that is a kind of, diabetic that keeps breaking something inside with the passage of time. I cannot find any good solution for that yet, but just to share what I've been seeing.
That sounds like it's really uncomfortable. So I feel for you on that. I would encourage you to just, it sounds like it would be useful to make sure that the person who's facilitating the conversation doesn't lean towards the hierarchy and the power, maybe. So maybe flip that around, but also it depends how much energy it takes, because it's sapping when that keeps happening, right? And you just go, oh, you disengage more and more and more. But if you can find the energy to make sure that your point is still recorded, it can help a bit. But I think it's crucial to have someone who's truly neutral facilitating the discussion.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any more for any more? Thank you for all the great examples so far. It is a really challenging space, isn't it?
Something that keeps coming in my mind, so I'm just gonna share, is when you were talking about setting up the rules at the beginning is very useful. And one of the things is important, I think that it comes quite handy as well to kind of acknowledge, is that we can disagree and commit, right? So we are here to make a decision, as the example you were saying.
Yeah.
And the purpose of having a discord of conversation is to get to the best possible outcome in the least amount of time. And things can change after that, but that's what we're here. So yeah, I think setting up the field at the beginning with like some rules, it makes sense to explain why we're here. Like the prime directive, it reminds me of the prime directive of retrospective. Regardless what we discover, we know that we are here with like the best intentions.
Yes.
To become better at what we do. So just a thought.
It's a really empowering thing to put up on a slide, the prime directive, before maybe it's a great thing to add to contracting, is like one, because it focuses people that we are one team, even though we disagree. So it's a great pointer. Thanks, Ines. Would anyone else like to add anything or bring anything else to the table? Okay. Shall I stop sharing, ladies, or?
Yep, I think, yeah, you can stop sharing. That would be good.
I think we had some questions. I don't know, Helen, if you have them at hand. One was, how can I teach conflict management when I am avoiding conflicts?
So I put that back to the person in a minute, but it came out of another point, and actually I didn't articulate it, was the best way to encourage people anywhere to step in is to role model it. To be what you want them to be, because it's walking the walk, right, instead of talking the talk. And it's a risky, fearful thing to do. And if people feel safe getting it wrong, and you're using the compassionate challenge and respect and consideration, and they see you doing that, then they'll feel like it's safe for them to take a risk and try it out too. Does that answer the question? I don't know who is the question from. Does that answer the question, or?
The question actually, the person isn't here, but they were asking, so we'll definitely feed that back. Yeah, a bit of role modeling.
Yeah. And so, and if that's too big a step, you can go back to some of the things that we talked earlier on about practice with someone who you feel safe with. So it might be a partner or a friend or a work colleague, and you might do a role play, which might feel a bit weird, but actually it's like practicing for this. Rehearse, 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 and think about all the, like, and ask yourself the question of what's the absolute worst that could go wrong, and take yourself there, because fear often stops us thinking that through properly and then makes the fear bigger. Whereas if we can push through that and say, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, and I think that also covers a couple of the other questions that we had in around how to resolve conflict without being, sorry, not this question, around how to surface conflict in a non-confrontational way. And I suppose you can always loop back to that role model practicing, and then, I don't know, is there anything else that you would add?
It's very much I find trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So, and physically, like if there's a dynamic where it's a one-to-one, you're always meeting with the person, sometimes changing seats can change the whole feel of a room, and you get a different perspective, or ask to swap seats with the person, because it's quite hard to shift our mindset sometimes to consider where the other person is. But yeah, I think it comes back to empathy, doesn't it, really? It's yeah, what would I be comfortable and happy to hear? And if I say, you're a complete bully, like that's going to start a fight straight away, right? Because there's nowhere for the me on the receiving end of that to go. It's just like going instantly get my machete out and go, I am not. Whoa. And it's like maybe about having a think through. So pause, think, consider what your options are, and say, okay, if I make this statement to me, what are the possible answers that it would elicit from me? And would I feel cared about and respected? And would I feel like that person was on my side if I was receiving that message? Or would I feel like that they were hanging me out to dry or stitching me up or on the opposing team? And that, for me, in that pause, stop and think before acting, really helps with being rational and being considerate and being empathetic, and to say, well, if I set them up to go into battle, it's my fault, it's not theirs. But if I'm compassionate and say, oh my God, I really had a bad day, and when I said, I don't know if it was hypersensitive, but would you be able to help me with feeling differently about this situation? Or it's just taking the time to work through your words and consider the impact on them, and also ask how they're feeling about it. Don't just go in with your stuff and go, this is how it is. It's like being curious is really important.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else want to add anything to that? Because that's just my experience. There's loads of other people who lived a life as well in the room.
Hello, I want to add one thing. Okay, so yeah, here different attendee has explained different kind of conflict from their experience. So mostly all are common, right? I mean, 60-70% are common type of conflict we normally face in our work environment. So I mean, as a team member, I expect a team leader should come up and conduct one meeting at the start of product, or if there is a new team building, kind of thing. They should explain or show to the team member, this is called good conflict and this is called bad conflict, with some examples. And they should explain, like, okay, this is not acceptable. So instead of waiting conflict occur in the team, we promptly educate the team member. Okay, this is this is not good conflict. Yeah, that I want to add. Yeah.
So would you be comfortable with someone else defining what conflict is good for you?
Yeah, there is some are the very basic conflict, right? For that, we can say, okay, I'm a team leader. Okay, they have more experience, right? So from their experience, okay, they can anticipate. Okay.
Don't worry about the child crying. We're all cool.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
So yeah, from their experience, yeah. Okay, so team member are junior, right? So they are not that kind of mature, right? So they can they can try to educate. Okay, okay, these are the good conflict, and yeah, we should encourage them for that kind of conflict, but these are not good conflict. Yeah, so it will make our team at a wrong spot, and also they should set the rule. Okay, this is not acceptable, right? Kind of thing. Yeah.
That's one way of doing it. Another way that you could consider doing that is or getting a common understanding of conflict is that when you as a team create your social contract where you say what is acceptable and not acceptable for your team, and the team can put whatever they wish into that. They can say on time for meetings, not interrupted on Friday between 2 and 4 by any extra, and in that you can say we are happy with this, or if someone feels something that is too conflicty for them that so you can also, instead of just leaving it to the team lead, you can discuss it as a team and agree some basic rules for yourselves and that everyone agrees with, which is another way of doing it.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Were there any other questions or comments from people?
No, but unfortunately I do have to go. So
have a lovely evening, and hope the integration testing's better tomorrow.
Oh yes, Friday feeling. Thank you, everyone. That was really helpful. But it's good to hear. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thanks, Amanda. Bye. Yeah, it was interesting your point on team agreements and certain hours that you can be interrupted, or your silent time type thing. Just a few months ago we did the same thing. It came out of a retrospective of when we agree meetings or what time we have a meeting, and all these things have sort of evolved. So now the team have built over 9 months their sort of team agreement, and it's evolved really nicely. And the stuff that actually didn't work for any of them that they thought would work, just as we do in retrospectives.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. It's really useful. Okay.
Yeah,
go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say one more thing. A question that came up is around promoting the promotion of positive conflict. We've talked a lot about conflict, that maybe how we manage it when it becomes a little bit negative, I suppose. But there's a lot of things around positive conflict and being able to promote that. Do you have any sort of last words on that? Or anybody?
I personally haven't heard of the words positive and conflict directly coupled, loosely or closely coupled like that, because I think conflict is such a personal thing. I don't feel the need to put I was going to say ion as our electron, positive or negative spin on it. So my chemistry coming out. But maybe someone else has got some positive conflict experience that we can learn about.
I actually wanted to ask, how do you define what is a positive conflict and what is a negative conflict? A conflict is a negative terminology which we need to rectify and solve it as fast as possible. Otherwise, it can do more damage before it's too late. I still can't find if there's any positive conflict. There could be different types of discussions based on your own interest. It could be positive discussion for me, maybe negative for you because you don't have interest in that topic. But conflict is a conflict.
Go on,
To me,
Ora.
I just hear the negative and positive is maybe more referring to how you handle the conflict, right? Do you handle it in a way that is positive, that is, you know, encouraging and all that? And negative would be, you know, just you're going out screaming at each other, throwing things.
Yeah, you might flame it up more while you're trying to solve it if you don't handle it properly. So yeah, that makes sense.
How does that sound with your knowledge, Helen? Do you want to share more about what you've experienced about positive conflict? Because I haven't heard it as a thing before.
I think I come from the same path of like conflict is conflict and maybe you shouldn't define it as positive or negative. I'd probably agree with that. I think just as Junaid, sorry, I'm terrible with pronunciations, but just as you were saying, is that there's always, with certain words, we have such a negative sort of attachment with them. It comes with Agile as well. First rule about Agile is never say it's Agile because everybody runs out the room. But yeah, so I would say it's probably better not to address whether it's positive or negative. But I just thought it was interesting, the different slant on it and how, you know, this conversation around promotion of positive conflict, because does that label it too much, thinking that maybe everything is being very negative in the company or negative conflict within the organization? So I just thought it was an interesting point that somebody had brought up in some of the chats. So.
For me, it sounds a bit politic, and maybe I would say trying to attach an agenda to a word, because I don't want you to think the conflict is negative, so I'm going to say it's positive, therefore it is, and I'm like going, yeah, that doesn't really work for me, sorry.
So
it's interesting.
Just Googling a little bit about the terminology, because it appears that it is a terminology that's out there, but it actually is kind of like between what Junaid said and what I said, which is they're talking about the outcome of the conflict. So a positive conflict would be one that results in, you know, people considering other ideas, resulting in increased participation, and negative is when it's lead to bullying, diverting energy from the organization, all that. So it's not defining the conflict itself, it's defining how you handle it or what the outcome of it, because you are or are not addressing it, right?
Yeah, that sounds really reasonable. It's just that the words together don't mean that on their own, but that's branding for you.
Branding, exactly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's really good to learn. Something new to me, definitely. Thank you.
We have discussed the conflicts based on the team and maybe what type of work you're doing, and there can be disagreements. But there are some conflicts which are, if you are having a multicultural team, that those are based on personality clashes or cultural differences, or you are not a good match in terms of discussion, where you discuss or tend your opinion, because in some cultures, even you're talking normally, it seems like more very decisive way. In some cultures, it's other way around, it's vice versa. And such sort of conflicts exist in the team where everybody technically is good and they want to work collaboratively with each other, but still the personality clashes and such type of conflicts are kind of disturbing the tempo or momentum here and there. Do you have some words spoken on this area?
I've experienced this quite a lot, because there's so many. I'm Irish, so and the culture in the UK, or where I live now, is quite different from the culture I've grown up in. And equally, if you work with cultures that are more hierarchical and deference, or more collaborative, or like, so it's not any different to having individuals in a team that are motivated by different things. So my go-to response to that would be try and expose what you need and what everyone else needs in the team or teams, so that you learn about each other and then become more sensitive to other people's needs. And maybe if everyone can adjust a little bit towards the middle, it helps. But it's also accepting that, you know, we've grown up with this for what I'm no spring chicken, but for whatever age, and it's in me to understand or to behave in that way. So it's very difficult for me to lose it, but not impossible for me to adjust it and change it over time. But it's to be thoughtful and sensitive to that if everyone's trying, that's like 90% of the way there. And then you can go, oops, sorry, I realized that probably sounded a bit harsh, or maybe, and then the person who finds it harsh going, no, I'm just a bit hypersensitive to that level of directness. So for me, I would always err towards trying to teach each other about our needs and to learn about each other's needs and to be curious again about what's going on for the other person, because inevitably that'll cause a conflict. Whether it's aired or not is a different thing. I don't know if
definitely,
definitely
that happened to me. Perhaps because I'm in Spanish, they always say that, oh, you're too honest.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you go very direct and stuff like that. So
and I'm going, not really. This is mild.
Yeah. So sometimes I kind of experience that with colleagues or other people that I work with. So it sometimes has come like a misunderstanding and perhaps create some kind of conflict even. But the way I have navigated those is one-to-one session with that person and trying to kind of explain, look, this is what I'm trying to say, or the idea I wanted to kind of put forward and so on. In that one-to-one, definitely those cultural barriers are disappearing, and you're trying to kind of really put forward what your real intent there. I would say that was very helpful. I don't know if there are other techniques. I'm definitely going to check Ines' book later on, but yeah, just want to share that.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Thank you for sharing that, Esteban. Anyone else like to add their experiences on that? Because we're fairly multicultural here, I think. I think that one sounds like it's in the bag then.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, I think I put the When Cultures Collide book, I think is what Esteban was referring to. Really interesting, but I think we see that more and more we work everywhere, you know, we distribute it, not necessarily disperse. And it's important to understand that, you know, we come from different cultures and we have different preference and we have different behavior triggers and things like that. So I think explaining this is useful, and having the ability to break conversation in smaller groups to give at least the opportunity for all voices to be heard. When you do voting and things like that, having the ability to everybody do it at the same time or reveal the results at the same time. Those things also help, the small techniques that we can do so that every voice is heard, everybody has the opportunity to at least say their thoughts.
Yeah, and some of the things that I found difficult actually were, again, I do the pause, think about what outcome I want, and take action after I've reflected, is when there's a culture that's opposing what you've worked to achieve. So I'm an egalitarian, and there's nothing better or worse, and some people are really hierarchical. And if you're in a position where you want to consult and come to a decision and get on with it, and then someone else is expecting you to defer to a hierarchy, how do you manage that? And that's why I think it's really important. Well, do you want to conform to that culture, or is it going to cost you too much? So that's where the pause, reflect, consider, like what's important to you, what's the impact, and if you come up with what action you want to take, is that acceptable? Like, what's the worst that could happen? And just taking the time to really think that through really helps me. Because it's not always simple. You can't just find a common ground or level everything. Sometimes you need to put your head above the parapet and risk getting it cut off, I suppose. Depends how important it is.
Well, on that risky note, then I know that we are coming up to time now. So thank you guys. Let me just quickly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Oh, they're
sorry.
they're after the last one. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you. Basically, thank you very much for coming. It's been really wonderful to hear all the discussions around things, and Siobhán, your wisdom and knowledge that you've departed has been fantastic. I've taken lots and lots of notes about different thoughts and ideas, so really, really appreciate that. We love to hear your thoughts as well at this virtual Agile meetup. So please ping us back any feedback on this tiny.cc/VA thoughts. That way we can get people like Siobhán coming over and talking about topics that you've requested, so that we can continue to learn and share from each other. You also have Siobhán's LinkedIn here as well, so please feel free. You said in the beginning just to reach out. Is that still okay? Like the group?
Yeah, no, I love the group. And yeah, please connect with me. Happy to do a little chat, and obviously if you want to do some business together as well, that's great. I'd love to work with anyone who'd like to do more one-to-one stuff as well.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you for being
guys.
such a wonderful group. I really enjoyed speaking with you and learning from you as well. So thanks very much for having me along.
Thank you, Siobhán. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.